A day that should have been normal. The sky was a clear, perfect blue. Children ran across the playground, their laughter filling the air. It was a beautiful afternoon, but not for everyone. 6-year-old Zayden Okafor, a black boy with Down syndrome, sat quietly on the grass, arranging his small toys in a neat row. His large, curious eyes focused entirely on his task, his little fingers carefully moving each piece. For Zayden, the world was a place full of colors and kindness. But the world wasn't always so kind. Not far away, his mother Tanya watched him from a bench. Her face was soft with love, but her posture was tense, always on guard. She knew not everyone would be kind to her son, the bully appears. Ryder and his awful mother. Ryder Whitmore, blonde hair, expensive sneakers, clothes that looked brand new, but a heart full of rot. He wasn't just a brat, he was a predator. And today he had found his prey. Sitting nearby was his mother, Savannah Whitmore, scrolling through her phone. Every so often she'd glance up, but never with concern, only indifference. She didn't care what her son did, or maybe she even encouraged it. Ryder stomped over to Zayden and towered over him, sneering. That smirk alone should have been a warning. From words to actions, when kids become cruel. "Hey, retard!" Ryder spat, shoving Zayden's shoulder hard. Zayden wobbled but didn't react. His big, innocent eyes just blinked up at Ryder. "Why do you look so dumb, huh? Say something, freak!" People started to notice. Parents whispered. Some kids stopped playing. Tanya clenched her fists, her whole body stiffening. Zayden didn't respond. He just stared, confused. That only made Ryder bolder. He snatched Zayden's toy out of his hands, threw it to the ground, and stomped on it with his expensive shoes. Crack. Plastic shattered beneath Ryder's feet. Zayden flinched, but he didn't cry. He didn't understand. He didn't know why. But Ryder wanted a reaction. He wanted tears. He wanted power, so he shoved Zayden harder, sending the smaller boy crashing onto the ground. Thud. A small cloud of dust and sand burst into the air. Tanya shot up from the bench. But before she could reach her son, she heard something that made her blood boil. Savannah, the mother who laughs at cruelty. The first laugh didn't come from Ryder. It came from Savannah. The mother who should have been teaching her son kindness was laughing. "Oh my God, Ryder, that was hilarious," she cackled, barely glancing up from her phone. No shame, no concern, just pure enjoyment. She didn't see a problem with what her son was doing. To her, this was just entertainment. Zayden tried to sit up, dusting himself off. But before he could, Ryder grabbed a handful of sand and blew it straight into Zayden's face. The fine grain shot into his eyes, his nose, his mouth. Zayden coughed, his small hands desperately rubbing his eyes as tears started to form. And that was it. That was the moment Tanya had enough. The last straw. Tanya stormed forward, grabbing Ryder's wrist just enough to make him freeze. Enough. Her voice was low, controlled, but the fury in her eyes was unmistakable. This wasn't just a mother anymore. This was a lioness protecting her cub. Ryder snatched his hand away, but for the first time, he looked uncertain. For the first time, someone had told him no. But Savannah wouldn't have it. "Excuse me? You do not touch my son." She jumped up, marching toward Tanya, chest puffed out like a peacock, as if she was the victim. But Tanya wasn't backing down. She straightened, standing firmly between Zayden and Savannah, her dark eyes locking onto the woman before her. "I said enough." The playground fell silent. Other parents started gathering, watching. And Savannah, the woman who always believed she had power, was suddenly realizing that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the one in control this time. End of part 1. The bully realizes the tables are turning. Savannah's panic sets. Savannah felt the walls closing in on her. Her entire body tensed. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to be the one in control, the one who walked away laughing. But now, she was the one being judged, the one being humiliated. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She snatched it out, her hands trembling. Notifications. So many notifications. The video had already started spreading. And the worst part, it wasn't just strangers commenting, people from her own neighborhood, from her gym, from Ryder's school. "Is this really you, Savannah? Wow, I always knew you were a snob, but this? Unbelievable. So you're raising your son to be a bully? Not surprised. Her heart pounded. This couldn't be happening. She had to do something. She had to flip the narrative. And then, like a drowning woman grabbing for a lifeline, she saw her chance. Savannah tries to play the victim. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and forced a shaky voice. You know what? This is harassment. This is cancel culture coming for me and my son. I'm being attacked just just disciplining a child who was being disruptive. A few people in the crowd scoffed. Others outright laughed. No one was buying it. Jessica, still holding her phone up, raised an eyebrow. Disruptive? Zayden was literally sitting on the grass playing quietly. Savannah's mouth opened, then closed. She had no comeback. She was drowning, but she refused to go down without a fight. She grabbed Ryder's arm, yanking him closer to her. My son is being bullied too. Just because he stood up for himself, now you're all coming after us? No one was falling for it. Not anymore. Carlos folded his arms, shaking his head. Lady, your kid shoved a disabled boy to the ground, stomped on his toy, and threw sand in his face. That's not standing up for himself. Savannah's face burned. She needed another angle, and then she went for the lowest possible move. The ultimate desperation move. Savannah turned her gaze to Darius, the black off-duty cop who had been watching everything unfold. And then she played her final desperate card. This is racist, she screeched. You're all ganging up on me because I'm a white woman. The second those words left her mouth, the entire playground went dead silent. And then, laughter. Pure, unfiltered laughter. Darius shook his head, a smirk creeping onto his lips. You really just said that, huh? Savannah blinked. Why weren't they taking the bait? Why wasn't anyone rushing to her defense? And then Jessica said it. Honey, you're not being attacked because you're white. You're being attacked because you're a terrible person. Savannah's face twisted into something ugly, because deep down she knew. She had lost. End of part 2. Savannah tries to twist the narrative, but it blows up in her face. Savannah has nowhere left to run. Savannah stood frozen, her eyes locked onto the police badge in Darius's hand. She was so used to using her privilege to get out of trouble. But this time, she was the one at a disadvantage, and that fact was driving her insane. You can't threaten me. I have rights, she screeched, her voice cracking from panic. But no one cared about her outrage anymore, because the internet had entered the chat. The video goes viral instantly. Jessica, the mother who had been recording, hit the upload button on Facebook and TikTok right on the spot. Meet the latest Karen, everyone. Within minutes, the video was already gaining thousands of views. People in the park started getting notifications from their friends and family. Some even recognized Savannah right away. The social media storm had begun. Savannah snatched her phone out of her pocket, her fingers shaking as she unlocked it. And then, bam, her name was already trending. Oh, wow, isn't that Savannah Whitmore? The woman who got kicked out of the PTA for stealing school fundraiser money? A woman in the crowd called out, her voice dripping with amusement. Savannah's dirty laundry was being aired in real time. The internet digs up her past. People started searching for more about Savannah. And what they found wasn't pretty. Wait, didn't she also get evicted but tried to sue the landlord for discrimination to get out of paying rent? Oh my God, she once took money from a charity and used it for a vacation. Every skeleton in Savannah's closet was being dragged into the light. Her whole past was unraveling in front of her eyes. Savannah went pale. She knew she couldn't escape this, and her career, her reputation, her life, it was over. Ryder feels the consequences too. It wasn't just Savannah facing backlash, Ryder felt it too. The other parents decided they didn't want their kids around a bully who learned hate from his own mother. After that day, Ryder became the outcast at school. No one wanted to play with him. One day, as he walked home from school, he looked up at his mother, tears brimming in his eyes. Why won't anyone talk to me anymore? But Savannah had no answer, because she had destroyed her son's future with her own 2 hands, losing everything in record time. Savannah worked as a real estate manager for a small company. But after her video went viral, the business started receiving backlash for employing someone like her. Her boss fired her immediately to protect their reputation. With no income, Savannah quickly fell behind on rent. She lost everything. A humiliating reunion with Amara. Months later, after struggling to make ends meet, Savannah had no choice but to take a job at a local grocery store. And fate had a funny way of making things come full circle. One day, as she was stocking shelves, she heard a familiar voice. "Oh, Savannah, you work here now?" She turned around and saw Amara. Savannah went stiff. The same black woman she had mocked and humiliated was now standing before her, smiling. Amara tilted her head, smirking slightly. "Small world, huh?" Savannah couldn't say a word, because for the first time in her life, she understood what karma really meant. And karma doesn't always come fast, but when it does, it takes everything. Savannah thought it was over. She was wrong. She thought the internet would move on. She thought people would forget. But the thing about karma, it never forgets. The lawsuit that changed everything. Savannah was barely keeping her life together when the letter arrived. She ripped it open, her heart pounding. And then she saw it. Lawsuit from Amara. "No, this has to be a joke." Her hands shook as she read the charges. Defamation, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Her stomach twisted. The amount? $500,000. Savannah's breath caught in her throat. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. But it was. The courtroom showdown. By the time she stepped into the courthouse, her arrogance was gone. No more designer bags. No more perfect hair. She looked wrecked. Mara, on the other hand, flawless, calm, collected, as if she had already won. And in a way, she had. The evidence that destroyed Savannah. Amara's lawyer stood up and placed a USB drive on the table. "Your Honor, inside this drive is the video of Ms. Whitmore publicly harassing my client's child and encouraging violence." Savannah's stomach dropped. The judge played the footage. The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of Savannah's own voice echoing through the speakers. "You people always act like victims. Maybe your son should just stay home if he can't handle a little teasing." Savannah buried her face in her hands. She had no defense, no way out. The verdict, karma's final blow. The judge's voice was cold, unforgiving. "Ms. Whitmore, you are hereby ordered to pay $500,000 in damages." Savannah gasped. "No, that's not fair. That's too much." The judge didn't blink. "You should have thought of that before you chose to destroy a child's innocence." Savannah had officially lost everything. Her money, gone. Her reputation, destroyed. Her power, non-existent. Meanwhile, Amara and Zayden, they walked out of that courtroom victorious. "Come on, baby," Amara whispered to her son. "Let's go home." And just like that, Savannah became nothing more than a cautionary tale. A reminder that some actions can never be undone. And when karma hits, it leaves nothing behind. The lowest point of Savannah's life, Savannah never thought her life would end up like this. Humiliated, broke, and stuck in a dead-end job at a grocery store. Months ago, she was the queen of her little suburban kingdom. Now, she was just another face behind the cash register. And worst of all, people recognized her. The customers who wouldn't let her forget. The internet never forgets, and neither did the locals. "Oh my God, are you that lady from the video?" A teenage girl whispered to her friend as they stood in line. Savannah clenched her jaw but forced a tight smile. "No idea what you're talking about," she muttered, scanning their groceries. But the girl wasn't convinced. She pulled out her phone, whispered something, and within seconds, they were laughing, sneaking glances at Savannah like she was some kind of freak show. And the worst part? She couldn't do anything about it. She had lost all power. Savannah faces a familiar name. A few days later, Savannah was forced to sit in a mandatory diversity training at work. She nearly choked when she saw the name of the woman leading the session. Amara Okafor, Zayden's mother, the woman she had mocked, the woman whose child she had allowed to be bullied. And now that woman was standing at the front of the room, holding a microphone, while Savannah sat silently among the other employees. Amara spotted her instantly, and for a split second, Savannah swore she saw a flicker of amusement in Amara's eyes. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to talk about workplace respect and the consequences of discrimination. Savannah wanted to disappear. She had hit rock bottom. What happens to Ryder? Savannah wasn't the only one facing consequences. Ryder was struggling too. After everything that happened, he became the kid that no one wanted to be around. Parents warned their children to stay away from him. Teachers kept a closer eye on him. And the once popular, arrogant bully was now the outcast, and he knew exactly why. One day after school, Ryder came home and threw his backpack across the room. "This is your fault," he screamed at Savannah. She flinched. "If you weren't such a bitch to that kid, none of this would have happened." For the first time in his life, Ryder was facing consequences, and he hated it. But deep down, he hated himself even more. The final blow. A message Savannah never expected. Weeks later, just when Savannah thought things couldn't get worse, she received an email from her old real estate company. Her license had been revoked. Permanently. She could never work in her field again. She was officially done. Amara's final words. A few months later, Savannah was working the register again when Amara walked in. They locked eyes, and Savannah braced herself, but Amara, she just smiled. "You know, Savannah, life has a funny way of balancing things out, doesn't it?" Savannah had no words. She just scanned the items, her hands trembling, because deep down she knew. Amara was right. Karma had done its job, and there was nothing she could do to change it. The end. Karma always catches up.